cold cases to serial killers, missing persons, and more.
100% he did this.
I'd go off in the fantasy world.
How much more lucky can you get that you're not on death row?
You want to know what we know.
My name is Jay. This is Guilty of Crime.
Well, everybody, since I don't think anyone heard the voice in that, I hope you can hear me. That was the most interesting intro I've ever heard. Is everybody there today? Am I talking to myself? Happy Thursday. We missed Watts Wednesday. So today we're doing, and I just put the volume up, folks. If you hear a little background noise, it's because it's hot in here and I got the air on. So what's up, everybody? Today we're talking about Chris Watts. And we've got Deception Detective. I'm going to talk about Watts, the Obsession. And I love me some collaborators. Love collaboration. So I want to get her name right. Watts, the Obsession. Her name is Kelly. I'm going to say hello to Melissa. If I don't say hello, she'll get mad. And thank you for the comment so much. Davey, what's up? Thank you for being here, Carly. Happy Friday Eve, unknown caller. And Lollipop. Yeah, everybody's growing. The community's growing. And you know why? It's because we collaborate with each other. The smart creators collab with each other, and it's a love fest. We all love each other and support each other. In my opinion, you say, and I'm assuming you're talking about Nichol Kessinger, used her manipulation tactics to drive him to taking diabolical actions. Her evil interviews demonstrate disdain for Shanann and the girls, indicative of a self-serving evil cochina. I can read Spanish, folks. I can't speak it, but I can say cochina all day long, baby. All right. So now that you know my hidden talent, I'm going to say hello to a couple more folks as you come in. Hello, Stephanie, Misty, Free Spirit. I love you. Thanks for being lending an ear and being a good person in general. Jan on the lamp. What's up? I would love to see Jay's wife. Well, if you go onto my community Facebook post, you'll see her on that. She will probably never come on camera. Hello, Cheech. I love these chill shows, everybody. I don't have anyone rushing me. Nobody's telling me to speed it up or be quiet or any of that. So I've got 27 right now in chat. I have a feeling there's going to be more. And that's only just because we're guilty of crime and we got a good crime crew going. So hit that like button no matter how many we have, because you know why? There's going to be a big rewatch crew. If you look at my Watts videos, there's lots of people that want to know about Chris Watts and Nichol Kessinger. So go ahead and hit that like button while we're coming in. And I love everybody. It's number 32, baby. All right. Let's start. Let's start with what we're going to talk about today. Today we're going to talk about whether we think Nichol Kessinger talked Chris Watts into the murders. And we're not just going to talk about it and speculate. We're going to watch and we're going to listen to Deception Detective. Casey M. Nobody likes a cochina. No, they don't. If some of you don't know what a cochina is, it's a dirty girl. And yes, Nikki's a dirty girl. Thank you, Jan. I'll always take compliments, especially at the end of a long day and a long week. What's up, Trulti from Norway, as we all roll in. And you, my friend, are just kidding. I'll talk as much as I want. It's my channel. All right. I'm just letting everybody roll in so they don't say, what did I miss? That Carly, I miss Carly too. I barely talk to her. I see her on the show and then she dips and she's out. So anyway, all right, let's pull up Mr. Deception Detective. We got Davey here. He's in the Deception Detective Forum. I love seeing him in there. We're going to talk about if Chris Watts was manipulated into murder by Deception Detective himself. Let's get this party started, folks. Get those hits, get those likes. If you haven't subscribed, we're going to drop some links to Deception Detective and Watts the Obsession.
Because the Colorado housing market is fire, and you guys are going to sell this house like real fast. And I'm like, you need to start looking.
Because she's a real estate agent. We're going to name all the things that she is. And I love that about Watts the Obsession. I'm going to play a clip from her that says it, and it was the best thing I heard all month long. First, we're going to try to remember them, okay? So I'll type them in the chat. First, she's the real estate agent. At one point, she's the therapist. She's also the nutritionist. She's also the mistress. Sometimes she's the girlfriend, and so much more. So the first one we're going to start with is her being the real estate agent.
Looking for a new place to live. And I'm like, where do you want to live?
And so notice how she constantly phrases these things as if she's Chris's big sister, almost like she's a marriage counselor to Chris and his wife. Well, what are you going to do with your house? The market is fire right now. It's a perfect time to sell. How about you and your wife sell your house? You should also find a place to live. I'm just here to help you. I'm like Chris's fairy godmother. I'm just here to help. I don't care about my own self-interest. I just want to help Chris. That's the impression she is giving off. I think the CBI is buying it. But you and I, we can read between the lines. We can recognize the words, multiple words of minimization, of manipulation, right? Tons of cards from the deception deck in this. In reality, I think she's telling 100% truth, but she's leaving out the context that this conversation went more like this. When are you going to sell your damn house? The market's fire right now. You have no excuse. Sell it and also find somewhere to live. If you're actually serious about being with me, why haven't you found another place to live? Are you stringing me along?
Yes.
That's probably how this conversation went.
Absolutely.
And she's basically telling us that in her own words, which is fascinating, and which is how 99% of manipulators and liars do it. What did Nichol Kessinger actually say to Chris Watts? I'm Deception Detective. I'm an attorney trained in statement analysis, and this channel exists to expose lies and manipulation.
And it exists so we can hear your sexy voice, Mr. Deception Detective. Doesn't he have a sexy voice? Anyway, let's listen to him. Right now, we have the stepmom, the therapist, the real estate agent, the mistress. What else do we have? Let's go.
In today's video, we'll analyze a segment of Nicole's interview with the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, and we'll read between the lines to get to the truth of her involvement or lack of involvement in the Chris Watts tragedy. This is my second video in this series. Without further ado, let's continue listening.
Yeah, I flew out there, and I thought I had convinced him to try to make peace with her. And I was like, if you guys work on this, I'm out. Because what's the point? I'm not trying to be with somebody that's in another relationship, which I know that sounds silly given the whole relationship that we had in the first place, but
she's completely lying right here, and I'm going to call that out because we saw in the last episode her emails that went back and forth when she sent it out from her work email, and she talked about Chris being married, and she said one day she'd like a family like his, and they should just remain friends. She's also the friend, folks. We have to add that to the list.
I really was under the impression that they were separating.
All right. One thing that Nicole does a lot, and you'll notice people do this in everyday life, is they tell you the truth. So they say things that are 99% true. But the deception is in the way they spin their words in the information treatment. For example, here, it sounds like Nicole is saying that she was trying to convince Chris to get back with his wife because she didn't want to be a mistress or a third wheel. But that's not exactly what she said. I think she and Chris argued a lot about his relationship with his wife, and I think she encouraged him to break up with his wife. And she just told us that. So listen to her exact words again. And notice how what she's saying might sound like she's the good guy in the story.
And we appreciate it for calling that out. Now, if you do listen, she gets upset when she's talking about it. She's getting upset in a way that she would with Chris, except she filtered herself, which means that it was even worse than that. And I'll take that comment again. Katie Montgomery, my voice is sexier. Thank you. Get two sexy voices on here. And what do you got? A mind-blowing show. And yes, Deception Detective is a very smart man. He's a lawyer, and he does this. And his cards, the Deception deck, are fantastic. So let's listen to this again and listen to how he breaks it down, and then I come back and break it down some more.
When in reality, it sounds like she was giving Chris an ultimatum, if we listen to what she actually said.
Yeah, he flew out there, and I thought I had like convinced him to like try to make peace with her, and I was
Right. I thought I had convinced him to try to make peace with her. What does making peace mean? Well, making peace can be I tried to convince him to have an amicable breakup from his wife, right? To get divorced, settle issues with the kids so he can come live with me. But making peace can also be interpreted as I tried to convince him to get back with his wife and make everything peaceful with her. And from part 1 in this series, where we looked at the first portion of this interview that she had with the CBI, it seems like these detectives are interpreting her words the way she wants them to. And in that section, we looked at her discussing access to her phone and the messages that she and Chris sent. Here, it looks like we're getting into the relationship between Nicole and Chris and Shanann. So the detective might be interpreting this as, hey, Nicole was, adamant that he either get back with his wife or break up, and she was trying to get him to make peace with his wife and get back with her.
Again, she's the peacemaker. And Melissa Johnson, I'm friendly with 420 people. I just don't smoke or ingest anything of that nature. So I'm very friendly, and whoever does whatever can do whatever they want. I just don't particularly. Thank you for asking. And now we've got the peacemaker, the therapist, the mistress, the friend, the real estate agent, and much more.
Are not. But in reality, what it sounds like, and based on her use of the word convince and make peace, is she was trying to convince him to leave his wife. And you only have to try to convince people when they're giving you resistance. So they might have argued about this a lot. So let's keep listening. So make peace is a vague term. Technically, she's not lying. It could be interpreted both ways. But the fact that she's saying she was trying to convince him to make peace sounds like she was trying to convince him to have an amicable breakup with his wife.
Yeah, I was like, if you guys work on this, like, I'm out. Because what's the point? Like, I'm not.
See, so if you work on it, I'm out. If you stay with her and resolve your relationship, I'm out of here. Once again, could sound like she's the good guy, right? If you guys resolve your marriage, hey, I'm out of here. I won't be a nuisance. But this could also be an ultimatum. Look, you either break up with her and stay with me, or make peace with her, get together, I'm out. Pick one.
I'm not trying to be with somebody that's in another relationship, which I know that sounds silly given the whole relationship that we had in the first place, but I really was under the impression that they were separated. I mean, it was like reiterated to me so many times that that's what I thought it was. And it made sense to me too, because like he could pretty much call me whenever he wanted. Like I was the one that would tell him like, hey, when your kids are awake, you need to spend time with your kids. Like
I have to stop this and make my comments because she is very manipulative, and most of the time he can call her whenever he wanted, because if you look at the timeline, the family was out of town. They were visiting the rest of the family, and Shanann was gone for what, 6 weeks? That's why he can call you anytime. And then when it got broken down to the end, the family was annihilated within 3 or 4 days after Shanann got back from her trip from Arizona. She was there for 3 days. Then she left for 2. And then after that, within 3 or 4 days, and I say 3 or 4 because she came home at like 2:00 in the morning. The whole family was annihilated. So most of their relationship happened, just for your knowledge and pleasure of this case, when Chris's family was gone out of town. That's why he can call her anytime. This lady is a crazy nut job, and I wish she was locked up for something.
So that's how she's explaining herself now. One thing that liars typically do is they over-explain themselves. They feel the need to explain their situation in order to persuade. Why is that? Because they know they're lying. So in the back of their mind, they're thinking, hey, I know I'm lying. Maybe they do too. So I should really persuade them here. And that's one reason that over-persuasiveness is a sign of deception. When people start explaining themselves, because or so or therefore, it's a good sign that they might be lying to you. And that is, of course, in my deception deck, my 52 favorite rules for spotting deception and manipulation, which you can order at deceptiondeck.com.
Please do.
So we can see here that she's explaining why he thought they were on the outs, when in reality, if she actually believed that, she could just say, he fooled me. I didn't need any reason to believe it. He told me it. I believed him. Done. Instead of gathering all this evidence and presenting it as to why she thought they were split up. If she actually thought they were split up, why would she feel the need to convince him to either repair his relationship with his wife or break up with her so she's not a third wheel?
She didn't.
There's lots of inconsistencies in Nicole's story.
Like, do that. And then after they go to bed, like, if
Yeah, notice her voice as well. She sounds irritated and impatient. And I think she got away with it. That's what we're talking about today. Do you think she manipulated Chris into the annihilation of his family? Now, before we listen to Deception Detective further, I do encourage you to buy his deck. I don't get anything out of it for telling you to do it. I'm telling you out of the knowledge. Now, I'm going to read the spotting subtle lies. So as you listen to her, you can spot subtle lies with me. There's subtle lies and then there's big lies. Okay, so spotting subtle lies. In the deck, it says, the best liar is he who makes the smallest amount of living go. I'm sorry. Let me start over. The best liar is he who makes the smallest amount of lying go the longest way. All of her talk in all of these interviews, this is 6-part or 5-part series. She lies the whole time, and it's all just a bunch of little lies on top of it. So, one more time. The best liar is he who makes the smallest amount of lying go the longest way. Samuel Butler said that. When you're analyzing statements for deception, recognizing even the smallest signs is crucial. Skilled liars often distort the truth rather than lying outright. They use tactics like omissions, nuanced information treatment. To detect these subtle deceptions, be wary of: number 1, assumptions. Avoid drawing conclusions based on vague language. Number 2, inferences. Be careful not to infer meanings from what is unsaid. Number 3, errors. Don't disregard incorrect grammar, as it could be a deliberate play. Number 4, diction. Pay attention to unusual words, including very overly specific or repetitive terms. Acknowledging these nuances is vital in unveiling the hidden truth in statements that appear honest on the surface. All that information on this little tiny card, folks, and it's spotting subtle lies. So remember, assumptions, inferences, errors, and dictions. No, my mic is not huge, just looks like that because I have it on a bar, but thank you for noticing. All right, let's go. Hit that like. There were 70-something people. Now there's 65. Hit that like if you like me. If you don't, it's okay.
you want to talk to me, you can talk to me. But it was never like this super, super restricted thing. Like sometimes, like right after work, if I was like still talking to him, I get kind of bummed out. And I tell him, just like, oh, it's frustrating sometimes, like having to like wait. But at the same time, I was never like, this is horrible. Or
So notice how she minimizes. I told him sometimes it was frustrating that I have to wait. Also, the fact that she knows she's waiting because he's with his wife means she knows they're not split up. Even the fact that she said it was never super restrictive means that it was to a degree restrictive. She was aware that to a certain point, his wife was restricting his ability to call her.
Oh.
So we've caught her in a lie, minimization, and exaggeration. So she minimizes her role, right? I told him once in a while, I was kind of frustrated. I told him either make peace or, hey, I'm out of here. I don't want to be a nuisance to your happy marriage. She minimizes the role the wife played. It wasn't super restrictive. It was a little bit restrictive that he had to tiptoe around his wife. The point is that Nicole doesn't necessarily give outright lies. She deceives through the use of exaggeration and minimization, right? And minimizing. And that is what
I just talked about, spotting subtle lies. You'll learn how to do that with your friends, with your spouse, with coworkers. Once you do, it's hard to come back from it. So be careful. Use it with caution.
99% of people do. 99% of people will not fabricate a bold-faced lie. Instead, the most common way to lie is they will just omit something. So they'll tell you a story, but they'll leave out the context that makes them look bad, so that you're left with an incorrect perception of what happened. And then really sophisticated liars like politicians or lawyers like Alan Dershowitz, who I've analyzed on the channel, What they do is they do something called information treatment, where they tell you the whole truth. Everything they say is true, but they also add extra words on top of it and extra grammatical techniques to actually distort your view of the truth. So
I love those people the most because they always think they're smarter than you by using big words. They think they're going to fool you and keep you quiet. Also, watch out for people that use big words when you're talking to them in a regular, everyday sentence, or I should say conversation. They use a big word in a sentence and you're asking them a direct question. They do that to throw you off, folks. So be careful of that. If someone's doing that, they're probably lying.
that if you ever do call them out online, they can say, well, technically, I didn't lie. I told you the truth. It's not my fault that you interpreted it that way. And if you want to see some examples of that, you can watch my video, How to Spot a Sophisticated Manipulator.
You know, it was always like, I understood why. But then once his kids were asleep, he never like had any. It was like he could do what he wanted. Do you know what I'm saying? Like
Sure.
He was in his basement and she's upstairs and they're not speaking. So it kind of made sense. It wasn't like.
And you guys are just texting.
So notice how she says it kind of made sense. She uses lots of deceptive words. In fact, if I were to count all the cards in the deception deck right now, right, that Nicole uses, we would have a royal flush. Right? She uses minimizing words. She uses exaggerating words. So here she says it was kind of. So let's play that again. And this is something, right? I know lots of the videos I do are true crime videos, and that's because that's the videos that my audience watches because the stakes are high. True crime names are well known around the world. Everyone knows Chris Watts. Everyone knows Nichol Kessinger. Everyone knows Madeleine McCann, John Benet Ramsey, etc. But the lessons from my videos can be used in your personal life, your work life, in every avenue of life where someone is communicating with you and you're worried that you might be getting deceived.
Trust me, it does work well. Now, Jenny Lang, you say obviously they are played like some stringless fiddles. The cops were. We don't know why. We do know the dad may have had ties to some law enforcement, but we don't understand why. My thought is that they just wanted the case to be closed. Chris already confessed, and maybe the dad had some persuasion, but they're not even interrogating her. She's telling them what they want to hear, and they're giving her the answers to their questions. Listen close. Listen real close what the investigator actually asks her, and then how he gives her the answers to what he wants her to say.
All right, so let's listen to Nicole again. Remember, she maintains that she thought they were broken up. However, she's already pointed out that there was some restriction to a degree that the wife imposed on his ability to call her. She admits in her own words that it was only after the kids went to bed that he was free to call her, that she was aware the wife was upstairs and he was downstairs. So it sounds like she was well aware they were together. And when she was telling him or convincing him to make peace with his wife, that could very well be her trying to convince him to make peace, as in to end things.
Yep.
Or, and I know very little about this case, and I've never seen this.
And that's why we're filling him in, folks. I'm going to show you afterwards the things that the police omitted from the case that they didn't show. So, we should have got rid of that detective and got a real interrogator, but they weren't really interrogating her. Start listening to the questions, and they weren't interrogating her at all. I don't call this an interrogation. I just call it communication with Nicole. And Jess, I'm glad that you were able to use these videos to spot your husband's lies. I hope you made him pay for it with his credit card. And you know, I'm just kidding, everybody. But yeah, it's good to spot lies.
This interview before, right? All I know about this case is what I've seen in a Netflix documentary, which was mainly about Chris, and this first part of the interview that we analyzed together. Another phrase that has the word peace in it, now that I think about it, is when you have someone rest in peace. Could that be some leakage that she asked him, or maybe joked about him killing his wife, make peace with her? Possibly. Although from what I've seen so far, I do not think Nicole was actually involved in the murders. I think Chris is a psychopath. I think that he did it all on his own. Nicole might even be a victim of his and that she was actually duped by him. But as far as her involvement with him and lying about what she and he talked about, I think they probably had some very serious discussions together, and they used different apps than just text and phone calls.
And now we know they did. We know Chris Watts had the app on his phone. It was a calculator looking app, and behind it was actually a text messaging app that I believe you can put photos on, etc., etc. So they didn't check into her thing. She deleted. Remember, she walks right into this conversation with the police and says that she deleted the text messages because she hated Chris and he icked her out and it was gross what he did. Yeah, I think that officer wanted a date with her afterwards, folks, and she may have gotten under the table and or gave him a handy. All right, let's go.
Which we analyzed in part 1. All right, so let's listen here.
Why? But then once his kids were asleep, he never like had any. It was like he could do what he wanted. Do you know what I'm saying? Like
Sure.
He was in his basement and she's upstairs and they're not speaking.
She wasn't.
So it kind of made sense. It wasn't like.
And you guys are just texting.
Right, it kind of made sense. And here's the lesson of the day about that. What is kind of? Kind of is a weakening modifier. And I'll just read you the rules. So each card in the deception deck has a rule. They're basically flashcards. A rule to memorize and a real world example. So what is a weakening modifier? How can you spot them in your own life to tell if someone's lying to you or trying to mislead you? Phrases like kind of, sort of, and seemed like indicate uncertainty, whether they are used correctly by someone being honest or misleadingly by someone who is lying. Any statement following these phrases should not be automatically accepted as true or accurate. So if someone says, I kind of woke up at 9 a.m. I don't know why I'm late to work. Well, kind of is a weakening modifier. Maybe they woke up at 9:15. Maybe they woke up at 10 a.m. Or if someone says, I kind of like you, that means that you probably shouldn't ask them out to the prom because they're not committing to liking you. They just kind of like you. They're weakening. They're using the word kind of to.
Damn, I just broke my heart. I get a lot of people saying they kind of like me. Now I realize I shouldn't ask them to the prom. Did you hear that, folks? If someone says they kind of like you, they don't really. Now I'm heartbroken. Let's go.
Modify their statement in a way that weakens it. So when she says it kind of made sense to her, in her own words, she's telling us it didn't make perfect sense. She, I'm sure, had very, very real suspicions that he was still with his wife and that she was the mistress.
She was. I mean, she didn't want to be the mistress. She wanted to have this
Texting
baby.
and
Or talking or whatever, you know. I mean, and it was like I said, it was at certain times, but that time, and originally it wasn't, but it was me that put that time frame on there because I thought he should hang out with his kids.
Also, lots of what we can see here is we have to read between the lines to recognize just how strict she was with him and how persuasive she was. In my opinion, she was very upset with him about being with his wife. So notice how she says, well, I told him to only call me after he was done with his kids. That probably means that she argued with him and said, you know what, don't call me until you're done with those kids and that wife of yours. You can't have it both ways. Either ditch them and get with me or stay with them. Until you're done with your kids, don't call me. That's the impression I get from her setting that boundary. She didn't say he set that boundary about only calling her after he was done with his kids. She said it. And the context she's leaving out is probably that it was in a way that was an ultimatum. And it might have planted a seed in his head that, hey, getting rid of my wife, in his crazy head, right? There's no justification for what Chris Watts did. He deserves to be locked up in prison for the rest of his life. And depending on the laws in Colorado, I don't know if they have the death penalty. He deserves that too.
They couldn't do the death penalty because they made a deal. I don't even know if they have the death penalty, but I have to pull up the timeline after this, folks, because I really need you to see what their relationship was and the bulk of it. If anybody has a link while we're watching this, send it to me and show the timeline. The bulk of their relationship was when Shanann was gone. Immediately when she came back, and then she went to Arizona for a couple of days to the convention, and then came back again. The whole family was wiped out within days after that. So I believe she was pushing him, and she gave him an ultimatum and said, hey, if you don't move out by the first of the month, then we're done. I'm over. I'm not going to see you anymore. Even though I believe she's the one that initiated this relationship. She started out with the emails. Then he gave her his cell phone number. She texted him. So this man's not even smart enough, even though people say his IQ is high. I don't believe he started this. I believe she did. he gave her his cell phone number, which means she had to have texted him. And then they moved it over to the app, folks. So I really need you to know how manipulative she is, and what he's saying. Deception Detective is spot on about her, and you could hear it in her voice that she's telling him, "You get rid of that wife. You need to get rid of those kids. We need to have our own family. We can't do that until you're done with yours."
However, that might be what planted the seed in his head that, hey, getting rid of my wife is not going to be enough, because she also only wants to talk to me after I'm done with the kids too. So let's rewind again. Notice she set the boundary about the kids, but she's downplaying it. We have to read between the lines. And by read between the lines, I don't mean we're interpreting her words. I'm listening to exactly what she's saying, and I'm putting it into the context of the word she's using to minimize it. So when if using a weakening modifier or minimizing words, that means that more happened than what they're saying, and we need to factor that in. All right, so let's listen.
And it was like I said, it was at certain times with that time, and originally it wasn't, but it was me that put that time frame on there because I thought he should hang out with his kids.
See?
Right, I put that time frame on there because I thought he should hang out with his kids.
Hear that?
So do you? Right, there's two options here. Do we think that she put that time frame on because she really cares about his relationship with his children?
No, she doesn't care about the relationship with his children, or she wouldn't have had an affair with the married man that she stalked a year before she was looking up the family, folks, and she knew that he was married with, they only had 2 children at the time. She wasn't pregnant yet. And a lollipop, there's no excuse for what he did, but we do believe that she manipulated him and gave him ultimatums, and he's an idiot because he then snapped. He even says, "I had to do it." That day he knew he had to do it. It wasn't a snapping thing. It was snapping in his brain, but it was premeditated because he says that he had to do it. And once that got into his head, he knew he had to go through with it, everybody. So if you don't know about that part, please, I want you to know as we go through this.
The fact that she's cheating with him on the mother of those children suggests that's probably not the case.
Me too.
It's more likely that she imposed that time limit to punish him for spending time with his kids and to make it more difficult for him to get the satisfaction of her attention while he still had his kids around. And this is the definition of a manipulator. That she can say that directly to the CBI's face, directly to the interviewing officer's face, and he can interpret it as if she did Chris a favor in order to help salvage his relationship with his children and his wife. And I'm sure lots of people interpreted it that way. But what I do not want to do is interpret it too far. The fact that she probably argued with him about spending time with his kids and didn't like the fact that he spent time with his kids does not mean she said to him, "Chris, the only way I'll be with you is if you kill your kids and your wife."
Right.
So
But
we're reading between the lines as much as we can.
Now, she may have said that, everybody. She may have said that direct thing directly to him at some point. She may have even texted him, and that's why she deleted the text message. She may have put something that was indirect, but direct enough to say, "Get rid of your kids. I don't care how you do it," which could be interpreted as, if it doesn't matter if you off them or not. Yeah, she is very narcissistic, and we know that by all the videos we've watched in her. We know about her past, how considerate. She was very considerate. She was a therapist, a real estate agent, a friend, a mistress, a peacemaker, and a whole bunch more.
To get to the truth of the matter, the truth of the conversations they likely had together. But we don't want to overstep. We can't go beyond her words. For example, if she said something like, "I told him the only way I'll be with you is if the kids are no longer in the picture," that would be a giant red flag. Then we'd really have to dig into that. But she hasn't said that yet.
She hasn't. And before we get into the next clip, folks, I do want to bring this up. I brought it up on Watts, the Obsession, the other night. I was on her channel for about 3 hours. It was really great last weekend. And I brought up the Thrive patches. Now, Kelly from Watts, the Obsession, said that she tried those type of patches and it made her heart all beat really fast, out of whack. She felt all sweaty. A coworker of mine also tried something like that, and the same thing happened. He had to go home because he was shaky and jittery, and his heart was going a million miles. So he was probably all sexed up from the supplements, and she was putting it in his face again, created the perfect sex storm. She may have been taking supplements too. I also believe they were taking hallucinogens together and other kinds of things to help uh, with their bedroom play. You saw some of the text or the Googles how to prepare for anal and how to have threesomes, things like that. So I believe that he was on more than just the Thrive, but that contributed. I think that may have contributed with his heart beating fast and all the other things. So I had to call that out because I thought the same thing.
Those 2 times you were at his house, did you see any evidence of that? Him living in the basement? Did he ever show you that area? Or anything?
I've seen it. Yeah, I went down there and saw his little workout equipment, and there's a bed down there all set up, and the basement was all cleaned and organized and stuff. So, like a decent bed set up. So it made sense to me. Like, hey, this is what's happening down here. So I saw it.
Even though his family was in North Carolina for multiple weeks, it appeared that he was still living in the basement.
Mm-hmm. Well, and he told me sometimes he would like go upstairs and sleep if like he was home alone, because I know she'd like go on business trips and stuff. But he's like, I don't like that bed anyway, so he didn't really like sleep up there. I was like, okay. Even when it was just him. So that was the impression that I got. And we were talking about North Carolina.
Go back to North Carolina.
North Carolina. So he still made very frequent communication with me when he was out there. And at one point he told me that they sat down and they talked about it, and he told her that he wanted to either fix things or.
All right. So she said he made very frequent communication with me when he was out there. That is interesting. And it goes back to part 1 in this series. In part 1 of the series, we analyzed a segment of the interview where the CBI were asking Nicole permission to look at her phone. And they asked her what she and Chris used to communicate. And she said they used text messages and phone. And she said she had no social media on her phone. The way she answered those questions indicated to me that they probably used different forms of communication besides just text messages and phone calls.
They did.
Which is why she was making sure that they limited their search of her phone, their consensual search of her phone, to just text messages and phone calls. And in my video, I said it sounds like she might have used something like Telegram or Signal or WhatsApp. And I had lots of comments of people telling me that she actually admitted later in this interrogation, or this interview rather, that she and Chris used Skype. So I'm looking forward to getting to that part. Hopefully, if this video gets to 50,000 views, I'll do a part 3, just like last time. Part 1 just hit 62,000.
And we already have 5 or 6 parts. Mr. DP has lots of people on his channel, and you're probably on his channel already. A lot of you found me through him, and someone recommended me. I think Davey recommended me. Check him out. Yeah, Deception Detective. Yeah, Adipex, bank the doctor for Ozempic. Shake my head. I had to change doctors. Yeah, this was a weak man. Hello, Rosie. I always love seeing you in here. And hello, Gigi. Today's the chill day. I can stop and say hello to my fellow Crime Crew team. Don't forget, tomorrow night is Crime Crew Official. It's a members only, and we're going to talk about anything and everything. You might be surprised about some of the things I talk about on a personal level, folks.
Views, which is why I'm making this part 2. I only want to make videos that my audience wants to watch, which is why I set a goal for us to reach before dropping another part. All right, so here she says that he made frequent communication with her. That is interesting. Why the vague, long description of how they talked? Why not say he texted me while he was there or he called me? Because she just signed over her phone to them to look for that. And they might not see texts and phone calls. But she doesn't want to admit to using some other communication app, like saying that he called me on Skype or he Skyped me or Telegram me or messaged me on Instagram or whatever other form of communication they were using, because I'm willing to go all in that they were using some other form of communication. And in my part 1, I also discussed the way the CBI could have bluffed her a little bit to get her to reveal what that was. So it's a shame that they continue to drop the ball even in this section of the interview.
What do you mean by that, Alley Cat? And hello. Hello, hello, hello. Yeah, I don't know what we mean. We definitely don't want to leave or talk about his mom or any of the family. I'm not sure what you're referring to, but I want to say hello to you and let me know in comments what you're saying. And present, I'm not sure what that is. Present 15 cent 12. People never talk about these supplements in crime, but I know what they can do. I immediately think of them whenever there's a love crime, anything after 1994. I agree with you. I've seen it happen lots of times, and that was the first thing I thought were the Thrive patches in combination of whatever else they were taking and doing. And remember, Chris was working out nonstop. He had just got the new bod. First, he had the dad bod. He was a little bit chunky and overweight, and then he got all yoked out. He wasn't really that yoked, but he lost a lot of weight and bulked up quite a bit. Then he started cheating. I do believe that he might have been cheating. Besides, with Nicole, he had some kind of app, and people claim to have dated him or had sex with him at Chick-fil-A. I don't know. Could be true, could not.
I think she said he still made very frequent communication with me because they were using whatever other app she does not want to admit to communicate while he was in North Carolina. So just make note of that weird turn of phrase.
Or like to
also note that it's not a lie, right? So that's another big point I want to make in this video, whether it's your personal life or your work or you're an investigator. I know I have lots of investigators, insurance investigators, psychologists who follow my channel, who are subscribers. Thank you to everyone who subscribes to my channel. Thank you to all my members. But whether it's in your professional life like that, or if you're just working a different sort of job that has nothing to do with assessing whether or not people are lying. We deal with deception every day. You should be aware.
And I do agree. We don't advocate to talk about anybody's family, whether it's the victim or the defendant or the person that did it or whatever. We never want to talk negative about it. I agree. There's full channels out there that dedicate themselves to talking bad about Shanann Watts, and I cannot understand that. So nobody advocates that. I appreciate you, Alley Cat, and I welcome every crime crew member in here, whether you're a subscriber or a lurker, to be part of the crime crew with the wrench. Be a moderator for us without having the wrench and help us control the chat. To keep peace in this chat, I invite you all. Let's keep the peace and the love and the good vibes.
Aware of that. If someone uses a deliberately vague way to say something that should be easy to say, that should be like an alarm bell in your head. Why did they phrase it that way?
to try to fix things, and if she didn't want to fix them, then they needed to like move forward with the separation and like actually file for divorce at this point was the impression that I got from this, and was what he told me. And so he said that she was like pretty receptive to just not trying. He was like, she seemed like she just wants me to go. He's like, when she has her mind made up, she has her mind made up, and that's what she wants. And he's like, she doesn't want to try anymore. And he's like, and neither do I really. And he was like, it's done. And he's like, and then the next day, I don't even know what days these were. Sometime when he was out there, he told me, we're putting the house up for sale as soon as we get back.
Also, notice all these updates he's giving her, right? That we're going to file for divorce. I'm selling the house. She said it's done. Do you think he was telling her all those things unprompted? It's possible, right? He was just keeping her in the loop. Or that these were reassurances he gave her whenever she was grilling him about the progress he was making with officially divorcing his wife and getting her out of his life. I tend to lean towards the latter. I suspect that it was Nicole asking him, well, what have you done? Why have you made any progress? Get rid of her already. Sell the damn house.
Yep.
And him saying, okay, she told me it's done.
In all honesty, folks, I know people aren't proud of having affairs, or when you're younger, maybe you had a boyfriend or a girlfriend and you cheated on them. Be honest. Have you ever been in an affair with somebody and either you told them or they told you, if you don't break up with them and hurry up and move this along, I'm leaving you, or they give you that ultimatum or vice versa? Let me know in the chat. It's a safe place here. It's okay. Again, everybody, Malibu Surfer, I love you, and you have your opinion. You say your opinion. We keep it respectful in here. I'm just curious if anybody's ever been in that situation and knows how people get. There's ultimatums, and I've been married for almost 19 years, but when I was younger, in my teens, that happened. So I can absolutely relate to what Deception Detective is saying. That happens. People get jealous, and girls definitely get jealous. All right.
I will sell the house. She said it's over. So I imagine these are reassurances he's giving her in response to questions from her and prompting from her. So I think she was more aware of his situation that she's letting on, and she probably pressured him a lot to advance getting rid of officially divorcing his wife and moving that along. In other words, I think Chris was under a lot of pressure from Nicole to do something big about his marriage, to finally end it.
Yep.
And because he's a psychopath, in his crazy little mind, the easiest thing to do was to literally get rid of his wife and children. Whereas a normal person would probably just get a divorce.
Right.
So just because I think Chris is a psychopath and truly evil and deranged doesn't mean I think that Nicole isn't manipulative and was probably nagging him about it.
Nagging.
Doesn't mean she's a killer, doesn't mean she's a murderer or even accessory to murder, but she is a classic manipulator. And that's why I think people are fascinated with her. And one reason I think my other video did so well is because people are more likely to meet manipulators like Nicole in their daily lives than they are to meet a true, genuine psychopath like Chris.
Here's the problem, folks. This was in 2018. We're in 2024, and brainwashing is a common phenomenon nowadays. But it's not a common phenomenon nowadays. It's a common phenomenon, period. And nowadays, it's being recognized. People are actually being held accountable for it. Michelle Carter, that's all I have to say, is her. She is actually got held accountable, but most people don't. Look at Charles Manson. That man never killed one person, and yet everybody is so like, oh, Charles Manson. I'm actually not a big fan of his case at all. He didn't actually kill anybody, and he did get prosecuted for brainwashing people to do so. Lots of people do it. They just aren't held accountable, and Nicole is one of them. We'll just call her the Skanky Empanada. I got that from Watts the Obsession. That lady is a riot and very smart. She's a teacher. I believe she's a psychologist. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Watts. So spotting the types of lies and manipulations of Nicole is more important for my audience to recognize, just because they're going to encounter it more often. If you do encounter someone like Chris Watts, then it's extremely important to be able to recognize the signs of a psychopath. And I have multiple videos. I actually have, I think, like 2 videos titled How to Spot a Psychopath, which you should watch.
And I was like, well, that was quick. And he was like, it's her. She's ready to go. And I was like, okay. And so I left it at that. And then he got...
Right. So notice how she says, so I left it at that, which means she allowed him to end the conversation there. So
Yeah,
even through
sure.
the words she uses, she reveals that she was the one prompting these constant reassurances from Chris that he was going to do something about his wife. And eventually, I think the pressure built up and he did something insane, something that Nicole could not have predicted. Although I am very curious what was said on Skype, if that is in fact the only other app they used to communicate. I suspect they had multiple other apps they used to communicate based on my analysis of the first part of this interview. And it's a shame that the CBI did not do a better job of getting that stuff included, or at least bluffing about to get her to reveal more information. I point out a very simple, classic bluff they could have used that anyone can use in an interview in my first video about Nicole.
Got back and I started asking him, like, what are you going to do? Because the Colorado housing market is fire and you guys are going to sell this house like real fast. And I'm like, you need to start looking for a new place to live. And I'm like, where do you want to live?
So notice how she constantly phrases these things as if she's Chris's big sister, almost like she's a marriage counselor to Chris and his wife.
There's another one.
Well, what are you going to do with your house? The market is fire right now. It's a perfect time to sell. How about you and your wife sell your house? You should also find a place to live. I'm just here to help you. I'm like Chris's fairy godmother. I'm just here to help. I don't care about my own self-interest. I just want to help Chris. That's the impression she is giving off. I think this
Skanky Empanada and the fairy godmother. Wow. This lady's got a lot of qualities about her. I can't believe nobody had already married her and knocked her up a few times. Very interesting. What is up, Vanessa? Hello, hello. I know you're just in here lurking. I appreciate you. Oh, boy, do I appreciate you. All right. And your hair wasn't messy at all. It looked great. Mine's messy all the time. Look at that.
CBI is buying it, but you and I, we can read between the lines. We can recognize the words, multiple words of minimization, of manipulation, right? Tons of cards from the deception deck in this.
Does.
In reality, I think she's telling 100% truth, but she's leaving out the context that this conversation went more like this. when are you going to sell your damn house? The market's fire right now. You have no excuse. Sell it and also find somewhere to live. If you're actually serious about being with me, why haven't you found another place to live? Are you stringing me along? That's probably how this conversation went. And she's basically telling us that in her own words, which is fascinating, and which is how 99% of manipulators and liars do it. They tell you the truth, but they leave out the context. They omit the context of how exactly it was said or what led to it. So let's listen to that again.
And so I left it at that. And then he got back and I started asking him, like, what are you going to do? Because the Colorado housing market is fire.
Right. I started asking.
I love how she says, what are you going to do? I mean, she's even getting the, the emotion behind that with the detectives. This is not an interrogation, folks. She's been talking the entire time. I haven't even heard any questions. I could barely hear the man. What is up with this? Vanessa, what is up with this? Is this an interrogation or not? All right, what's up, Patricia Ross? If you think this is an interrogation, put a 2 in the chat. Otherwise, put a 1 if you think it's not. I'm very curious if you think this is a real interrogation or did they call it something else? Is it? They call it an interview, but I don't know.
Yeah. What are you going to do?
And you guys are going to sell this house like real fast. And I'm like, you need to start looking for a new place to live. And I'm like, where do you want to live? And I was really trying to help him out. I'm like, do you want to get a house? Do you want 3 bedrooms? So you have one and each of your girls have one. I'm like, do you want to?
I was really trying to help him out. I don't think so. And even now she can't help but put the patronizing and mocking tone, just a little bit of it that she probably used when she was actually saying this to Chris. Do I think for a second that she actually cared where his children were going to sleep in a new house? Of course not. This sounds like the tactics of someone trying to manipulate him or trying to bully him into selling his house and doing what he promised he would do, which is sell his house, get away from his wife and kids, and go live with her in a new residence.
Yeah, he's just calling it out, spotting all the stuff that she's saying that a lot of people missed. I don't know what this interrogator is doing, but we need to get a new one. I'd love to see a fresh set of eyes on this case and have them open it back up. There's no double jeopardy in this case, folks. There's no double jeopardy because she's never been prosecuted or even properly interrogated. So we can actually, if somebody looked at this with fresh eyes and they were to get the text messages, they can prosecute her for something, I bet, especially if Chris is willing to talk now.
Do an apartment? Like, what do you want? Where do you want to live? Because he's in Frederick, but that whole area over there is just like a bunch of small towns and you can kind of just pick and choose. Everything's kind of, and so he told me, well, I like Brighton. And I was like, okay. And then he told me he wanted a 2-bedroom apartment and he said he wanted 1 room for him and the other room for his 2 girls. And I thought it was kind of cute. Like, I remember telling him, I was like, yeah, me and my sister had bunk beds, like at my dad's house. And I was like, when we were little girls, me and my sister were the same age apart.
Again, ask yourself, why were they talking about bunk beds? Why was she telling him about bunk beds? Probably because they were both sitting down in front of a computer and she was trying to convince him to get a 2-bedroom apartment rather than splurging on a 3-bedroom apartment. And saying, your daughters can sleep in bunk beds. You and I can take the master bedroom. When your children come visit, they can use that room. We don't need 2 rooms for your daughters. Is this a big leap?
Or you can just get a 1-bedroom apartment with me and get rid of your whole family. How about that? Something that she said multiple times over and over made him snap to do what he did. He knew he had to do it. He decided he was going to do it when he didn't use his gift cards that night, and he splurged and bought some salmon dinner, 2 salmon dinners or whatever he bought. He spent $60 on the credit card. He didn't care, and he knew I can't decide between a cobra and a python, but if the scale fits lower than a snake belly. You guys are awesome. I love these chill days with the crime crew.
Could I be reaching? Yes. However, I'm going based off of the type of deception that she uses, which is lies by omission, which is specifically how she leaves out context. And Jada Pinkett Smith, Ruby Frankie, lots of the manipulators we've analyzed on the channel use this form of deception because it is extremely easy to do and it's very common. You don't have to make up anything. You don't have to fabricate an alibi or invent a story in your head. You can literally tell the truth, but just present it in a much softer, more pleasant way than it actually happened.
Him and as his two daughters, so I told him, I was like, they're going to love it. I was like, they might be like stuck in one room together. I was like, but they'll become like best buddies. And it was really exciting. Like, I liked helping him, and I just wanted him to like,
Yeah.
I don't know. This is what he told me he wanted. So I was like, well, I will help you do the research. But another thing that I really took care of was to be like, where is she moving to? I was never like, you know what, screw your wife, try to get full custody. None of that bullshit.
Again, she didn't say her name at all. I never heard her say Shanann in any of these interviews. Maybe I missed it, but you could hear how she got upset when she said, what are you going to do with her? Wow. I'm sure Dee Dee's going to call this out.
It was always just like, I'd ask him, I'm like, well, what?
So is Nichol Kessinger his realtor or his mistress? I believe, once again, everything she says. I do believe she said, where is your wife moving to? Do I think she asked it like this? Well, where's your wife moving? We have to make sure your wife has somewhere safe to live and it's convenient for the kids. Or did she say it like, where is she moving? And it better not be a 2-hour drive away where I have to spend an entire day shuttling your kids back and forth on visitation days.
Right. Good call.
What kind of custody are you guys going to have? Because he at work, they're about to switch his schedule. So right now he's like on Monday through Friday, and they're about to switch these guys to 8 days on, 6 days off.
That's tough.
That's awesome. And I was asking him, I was like, are you going to have your kids like on that set of days off? I was like, because that would work perfect. Like 1 week on, 1 week off. And I was just like, we just talk about it. I'm like, what is your plan? And he's like, we haven't figured out exactly what we're going to do about the kids yet. But he told me, he's like, Colorado's a 50-50 state and she's okay with everything 50-50. Like he said she was like on board with this because she wanted it too. Like she was checked out of this relationship.
Have y'all met Shanann? Shanann filmed her own documentary about the family annihilation. If you actually watch the documentary on Netflix, 90% of it was the film footage from her and what she recorded on her Facebook channel. So she actually did create her own documentary about the family annihilation, which is interesting. I do not think Shanann ever thought it was cool that he was going to leave her while she was pregnant. I do believe that she might have said, I'm never going to let you see your kids again. And I'm going to, if you do this, and that may have been part of it that made him snap. But he decided to wipe them all out.
So that was like how he made this sound, that it was like a very like kosher word.
Interestingly, checked out is another slang term for dead, right? So rest in peace, checked out. I wonder if they joked about his wife dying or joked about him killing his wife.
Exactly.
I know lots of other YouTube channels, true crime channels, know a ton about this case. And in my comments in my last video, lots of you guys know way more about this case than I do. But I just want to say here clearly, if someone wants to react to my video and add context and details I don't know, whether or not they conflict with what I said or they actually add to it, like if someone knows what houses they were looking at, I would be very interested in seeing your reaction. And in fact, I have a whole playlist for people reacting to my videos. So if you do react to one of my videos and add good context, I want to feature you in this playlist. I want to give you credit. You have my permission to react to my videos. And in fact, I'll recommend this video by YouTuber Zawoki, who reacted to my first video in this series. So if you want to check out his channel, I watched it. It's just a fun, different take. And he clearly knows a lot about the case. So Zawoki, if you want to react to this one or any other YouTube channel, react to it, please, and add your insights. It helps me develop my theory.
This was a long time ago, and now I have reacted to lots of Deception Detectives videos. And if you go into his forum on all over the collaborations, you guys should go check those out. Check out his videos without me talking, and check out vice versa, what goes on in there. It's interesting. Crime to remember. How do you know she's back in town? I am thinking that what's going to happen is what happened with Casey Anthony and her Peacock special, the 10-year anniversary. She came back out, and now we know kind of where she is, what she's up to, that she never had kids. So I'm wondering if this one's going to wait for the 10-year anniversary to capitalize. This happened in 2018, so that means we have to wait a couple more years, 4 more years, for her to come back out and see what happens. very interesting. We know she wants to capitalize on this, folks. Now, she's been talking the whole time. Has the detective asked her anything? And if so, what?
And my audience will be exposed to your channel through this DDX Collaborations playlist.
We're done kind of thing.
Did you ever give him like books or articles or anything to read about saving your marriage? Did you ever provide anything to him like that?
About saving his marriage?
Yeah, like how to recover a marriage or how to save your marriage. You know, there's all sorts of publications and books out there.
No, but I did tell him, and I
So this is probably the first good question they've asked. So you're telling us how much you wanted him to make peace with his wife and wanted to make sure the children were taken care of, and were even offering to help find an apartment for his wife to live. Did you ever provide any literature or blog articles or anything that would help him save his marriage? And you could see a reaction, save his marriage? No, of course not. I wasn't trying to save his marriage. Which is what we came up with about 11 minutes ago when we first started watching, when she said make peace. It was clear to me, at least, that when she said make peace, she meant an amicable split. But it was vague. It was open to interpretation.
We paused at a perfect time because look at her face, folks. She looks nervous and like, let me make it a little bigger just so in case you can't see her face. It's almost ridiculous what she's doing. She's like, and a crime to remember, I know that you have to keep the anonymity, but if you ever like to come up and talk about this case with me, I would love that. I know that you have some connections to a cousin or a family member, somebody that's tied to this case, and you can keep the anonymity of that person, but just talk in your perspective. If you're ever interested, let me know. Just pop on the channel and tell me, or you can email me. That would be great. I know in the last episode you told us about your connection.
So I'm glad the CBI at least pinned her down on that. She wasn't trying to rescue the marriage, no matter what she tells us here. No matter how much she's acting like she was a real estate agent for the family, trying to make sure everyone has a nice little condo to live in. She was urging him and nagging him to break up with his wife. That much is clear. It's also particularly clear because whenever she says he told her something, it was always in response to something she asked. So it's not like he's constantly providing her updates and keeping her in the loop and excited about it. She always says, I asked him and he told me this. I left it at that. It's clear that whenever he's providing an update on his breakup from his wife, it's because Nicole is prompting him to provide that update, most likely in an argumentative situation.
And I don't know if I did this through text or phone. That will be something you guys will, I'm sure, figure out. But I told him a few times, like, I think that you should take the time to read some articles about what separation does to kids. You know,
Okay, now she's totally lying, and she's saying just the fact that she said, yeah, I showed him some articles or told him to read, and she's going to go into telling him to read some articles because she grew up and her parents were divorced, but it didn't really affect her because she was so young. So if you do it now, it won't really affect the kids. That is just all ick. And you know what? Crime to remember, I wonder if the family can go after her in a civil suit. If they get a private eye and they dig something up and they civilly sue her just to make her come back out the spotlight and come out of hiding, that would be fantastic. And Ed, of course, she doesn't mention by her name Shanann, the villain. She doesn't say Shanann's name at all. And when she does talk about her, she says, let's get her out of here. What are you going to do with her? Well, we know what Chris did with her.
I told him, I said, when my parents separated, we were literally like 3 and 5. We were almost the exact same age as these little girls. And I told him, I said, you know, I was so young when it happened that it didn't really have like a big negative effect on me because it was so small that I didn't really process it too well. I was like, but I do have cousins that they're.
Interesting what she's saying here. So she's saying I was the same age as the girls, but it didn't negatively affect me because I was so young. In what context would she have told him that? Probably in rushing him to get the divorce. Look, if they get any older, it's going to have a big impact on them. They're going to be in school. They're going to remember it more. You need to break up with her now while they're young and it won't impact them, because that's what happened with me. I was young. My parents got divorced and I don't even remember it.
Yes.
Everything she's saying is true. It's just up to us to provide the context, which is why we have to take a couple leaps in logic, or not even logic, just a couple leaps in understanding the context of how she said it. Why would she be making the argument that it's better to get divorced when the kids are young at the age they're right now than try to save the marriage and wait? because that's in her interest. I can imagine her saying that in the context of an argument, in the context of pressuring him or debating him. Look, get divorced now while the kids are young. The longer you wait, the more risky it's going to be. That's going to impact them.
Their parents got divorced when they were like 10, 11. And I think that it hit him a little harder, and he's like, oh, they'll be fine. And I told him, I was like, even though they're small and you think that they'll be fine, I was like, I think you guys should just read about it just so that you guys are prepared in case, one of these two starts having a hard time with the fact that you guys aren't in the same house anymore, and I would tell him, I was like, there's pros and cons to it. Like, cause he was like getting ready to do it. And it would be like, it's kind of cool having 2 Christmases and, like your parents get to go, be happy doing whatever it is they want to do with their life.
I never think it's cool, and the kids never gonna think it's cool, but I do agree with, if you're not in a happy relationship, it's better to get out of it for the kids' sake. Put the kids above yourself. Kids know when you're not happy, and it's tense. If you're not happy, everything's not a good, there's no good feelings with the kids, and they pick up on that. So if you're not in a relationship that you don't want to be in, for your kids' sake, do it. Don't do it for this lying, manipulative snake crime. But remember, you don't have to talk about your cousin or to your cousin. I just like your perspective on the case to go back and forth, like how Dee Dee does. Just talk about what you allegedly know, etc. If you're ever into it, you don't have to bring your cousin into it.
And they
So she's providing all the reasons that divorce is good.
Right?
Really, it sounds like she was pressuring him and nagging him, and in his sick mind, he considered his only option to fully get rid of his wife and children in order to be with her. I don't think it is at all her fault that he murdered his wife and children, because that's just not a reasonable expectation. If you pressure someone to divorce,
Right. If that's all she did. But I think she did more, and I think the reason she deleted her text messages is because she said more than that, and there was probably a lot more incriminating evidence on the phone and in the apps that she might have pressured him even further and said, I don't care how you get rid of her, just get rid of her.
divorce their wife, any reasonable person would not expect them to go kill their wife and their kids just because you pressured them or gave them an ultimatum. The reasonable expectation is, okay, they're going to divorce their wife and be with me, or they're just going to dump me and stay with their wife and save their marriage. So while Nicole is deceptive and manipulative and probably put a ton of pressure on him to divorce his wife and to reduce his involvement with his children, I don't think we can blame her for what he did. That said, I've only analyzed a certain portion of this interview, and I do believe that they communicated on other apps that she's not disclosing to the police.
And now we know they did, but we do explore other text messages, Gigi. If you go back to the last episode, I read a bunch of text messages between the two, and that's where I got the skanky empanada, because he calls her his little empanada. And there's text messages, and then there's some text messages right before the day of the family annihilation. That's the text messages that we further looked into on the last episode. And I could do a full episode on just emails and text messages. I could show you the first email where it started from work, and we could go into text messages again. They did further explore it, and they didn't care. And right after this, I'm going to show you other things they didn't care about that they wouldn't even look into. And when I say they, the police.
Which means that maybe she did go beyond just a suggestion. Maybe she did ask him to do more severe things, or gave him a clearer directive, or helped him plan a theoretical, half-joking murder.
That's what I think.
So I won't rule her out completely, just like I did in part 1, because I simply don't know enough, and because she's shown enough signs of someone who is deceptive and trying to sneak stuff past the police while giving herself deniability. So she's telling them the truth, but she's leaving out a ton of context. Even when it came down to searching her phone, she said, check my phone calls, check my text messages. That's basically the only way we communicated. Or I think she actually used her favorite weakening modifier, right? Like, that's kind of the only way we communicated, or pretty much.
Actually, that's a good question, Gigi. You said you saw those, but you didn't think they discussed the crime via text. Possibly found them. Maybe they didn't hold her accountable. And that's why I think they should get another detective, like a cold case detective, to look at this. Maybe there are buried text messages that they found, and nobody said anything. That's a good possibility. I agree. Now, as we finish listening to this, I want to read the weakening modifiers to you so you can listen to what she's saying. And almost her entire time, Dee Dee talked about this earlier, but she used lots of phrases the entire time, and they're called weakening modifiers. Phrases like kind of, sort of, seemed like, which indicate uncertainty, whether they're used correctly by someone being honest or misleading by someone who's lying. Any statement following these phrases, kinda, sorta, seemed like, should not be automatically accepted as true or incorrect. It's I can't even say that word. Ambiguity. So yeah, very ambiguous, folks.
Which to me was a big red flag that they used other apps or social media or tools to communicate.
They don't have to be in a situation that's probably not good for the kids because it's not good for those two, but at the same time, it was like, just read. Like, that's what I always used to tell him. I'd always tell him to, like, I tell people to read about everything. Reading is so good for you.
So he, at this time, is telling you that, yeah, I am the guy trying to save the marriage and she doesn't want it.
That's what he told me. So, and then he was like, she doesn't want it, so I'm not going to do it. And then it was like, we're filing for divorce, we're selling the house. And this was like all as soon as they were coming back to North Carolina, like boom, 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 boom.
Would you recall?
And you hear what she's saying? I know you heard that statement as well. Unmasked true crime. Vanessa, she said she went over there 4 times actually, but no one followed up on that. And I'm going to say no one followed up on that either because there were other things. She did ping at 6:15 a.m. the morning of the family annihilation, and nobody looked in on that. But if we get a cold case detective or a private eye and they look at this closer, I bet you they have information. And I bet you they could talk Chris into, by now that she has a new boyfriend, saying, hey, look at her with her new boyfriend. She's living her life freely. And look at all these text messages and how we know she pressured you. I bet you they could talk him into it. And then look at all of the 4 times her going over the house. No one followed up on. I bet you they can now. Let's try to get that to happen, folks. We really want that to happen. That's the outcome. Not for us to just talk about this over and over, but something to be done.
When he gets back from North Carolina?
No, I don't even know how long he was out there. I know it was like less than 2 weeks and more than 1.
Okay.
I don't remember.
So Nicole probably gave him that ultimatum: leave your wife and children within the next week, or it's over, while he was in North Carolina.
Yeah.
And she probably gave him the ultimatum through some other app or communication method besides text or phone call. Based on what she said earlier, which was he made very frequent communication with me. Right? Not that we were texting back and forth or we called each other. Frequent communication. That's a very vague term. It could leave open. They were talking to each other on Instagram. They were talking to each other on Snapchat. They were talking to each other on, end-to-end encrypted tools like Signal, Telegram, Skype, etc.
Remember.
So he comes back early August. Would that be fair?
Oh yeah, it was definitely like in the first 2 weeks somewhere.
All right.
Probably the second week of August at some point in that. I don't remember when.
Does his wife come back with him at that time? Or
Yeah, they all came back.
They all come back at the same
They
time.
all came back. And then so he continues to just tell me that this is like what he wants, and so I took the time, and you will see that in the text too, where I I found this apartment. It was perfect. It was so cute. I was like, it's in your price range. It's like 6 miles from the gym. It's 23 miles from work. I'm like, it's super close to Frederick. It's going to be by your kid's school. Like, this is the spot, and I told him, I was like, okay.
So,
sorry, detective. I had to pause you for a second. That sounds like pressure to me. Hello, Natalia. That's pressure to me when you're listening to how she's talking to the cops and what she's saying, and even her tone of how she's saying, I found the perfect spot. It's got right next to the gym. It's close to the freeways. It's this. That is pressure big time. Although that Chris gets no free pass for anything, she's telling them that she's pressuring him, and they didn't look further into this. What?
Notice all the persuasion. Right? These are conversations she had with Chris. Get divorced now while the kids are young because it won't harm them. Here's the perfect apartment. Go here. The market's fire. Sell your house. She's saying this as if she was doing it out of, like she was his secretary. And he said, find me a house, find me an apartment, look up school districts. In reality, I think she was pressuring him and bombarding him with these things as a way to pressure him to finally make a decision.
I'll keep looking for more places. And he's like, well, there's some that I want to go see too. And he actually had me thinking that he was going to go look at these places this week before all
Okay,
this.
so this is fairly
Interesting.
But
So
it's-
the week that he killed his wife and children was the week when he had to tell her, I'm going to go look at apartments. It sounds like their debates about what he was going to do was reaching a fever pitch. It sounds like he was at the point with Nicole where it was either shit or get off the pot.
Yeah.
Are you going to go with me to look at these apartments or not? Why is your house not listed? Why have you not signed the divorce papers? Do it now or be done with me. It's over.
Now, that's not a crime, everybody. But what is a crime is deleting text messages when your boyfriend or whatever he was just family annihilated everybody, and then right after that you delete the messages. And we're seeing how manipulative she is and what she's saying. I do believe in those text messages she said get rid of her at all costs. I don't care what you do. And Chris was just dumb enough what he did. After this, I'm going to show a quick clip of how shallow of a grave and where the girls' bodies were. I just want you trigger warning on this, and then I'm going to show you some Watts the Obsession, because I want to introduce her to my channel and shout her out, say hello to her. She teaches me a lot about this case by watching her videos. So, all right.
Chris was probably under a ton of pressure from her, and being a psycho coward, decided to murder his wife and children rather than disappoint Nicole or break it off with Nicole.
fairly recent then, if we're
This
talking.
just happened, like in the
He's
last.
going to go.
All right, so this just happened. All this fever pitch about where to live, all the stuff she was sending him was probably piling up in his head. Where are all those messages? I want to see all those communications. From what I see here, it sounds like Nicole was basically being a pushy mistress. It sounds like she was sending him apartments, sending him stuff, and then he interpreted it as, okay, I need to do something dramatic now. And I'm too cowardly to break up with Nicole, and I'm too cowardly to divorce my wife. So I'm going to do the most cowardly thing, which is kill little kids. Kill my own kids and my wife.
Yeah, I can't get that.
If Nicole had helped him plan the murders or something along those lines, or encouraged him to do the murders, I don't think she would be telling us about finding the apartments. Because I don't even think she realizes how that factored in. The fact that she's saying this just happened, I just sent him all this stuff to this apartment, he just promised me he was going to look at them, means that even she might not realize how much impact she had on his decision. It probably all happened internally in his head. But because she deleted her messages with him before going to the police, and because she sounds deceptive about listing all the ways they communicated, I am not willing to give her the benefit of the doubt.
Good.
So I'm not going to rule her out, but so far I haven't ruled her in, because it sounds like she's admitting more than she realizes right now.
Go look at apartments.
He wanted me to go
During,
with him.
when you say this week, are you saying
Like this
Monday
this
was the 13th?
like this week.
Okay.
Yeah. So I told him, I was like, we'll pick out a few spots, and if you want me to come with you, I'll go look at them. But you know.
You said earlier that
So notice the choice of words. I told him. I believe her. I believe she told him, pick out some spots and we're going to go look. Not like I asked him or I suggested he pick out some spots, or he told me he picked out some spots. When she says she told him, I believe her.
they
And honestly, I think he got the best of him because both women were at him. Okay. He was, Shanann was coming at him. She started to see that he was acting different. He wasn't paying attention to her. When he went and visited in North Carolina, she texts her friends and says, he barely paying attention to me. We didn't even sleep together. He normally can't go without, more than a day or a couple days without it. He had pressure from Shanann, and then he had pressure from this one that was direct pressure, what to do with the family. And it was too much for him. Other people said in chat about how he didn't show any signs, no criminal history, to go from that to that. Another thing that gets me about this case, and with all family annihilation cases, we all could imagine when you're married or in your relationship, you could imagine being mad at your wife or husband or a spouse. And you could imagine, you see it all the time. People, instead of getting divorced, bury more of you. You go and you get rid of them. But you can't translate that to the kids. None of us can translate that to the kids. I just don't know how you can go that far.
He had never, or that the apartment wasn't for you and him. It was just for him and his children.
Oh yes.
It was, you had no intentions of moving in with him.
No, I have my own spot. I still have a lease there till July. And even then, like, he never asked me to move in with him.
Okay.
And I never tried to move in with him. I mean, I told him, I really try to take everything with this whole situation very slowly.
So this is an interesting response. Let's rewind.
His children?
Oh yes.
It was, you
all go look at them, but you know.
All right. So the question is, did Nicole think that she was going to live with him in this new apartment? Because if she did, that's a sign that what the apartment she was picking were going to be where they lived when he broke up with his wife. It suggests that the ultimatum was pick a new apartment for you and me to live and dump your wife, or stay in your old house, stay with your wife, and I'll be out of your life.
You said earlier that he had never, or that the apartment wasn't for you and him. It was just for him and his children.
Oh yes.
It was, you had no intentions of moving in with him.
No, I have my own spot.
All right. So no, you had no intentions of moving in. No. That could be an honest answer, and that no, I wasn't going to immediately move in. In the beginning, it was going to be him and his children because I have my own spot and I was going to stay there till my lease was up, or I wanted the divorce to cool down. Once again, everything she says could be 100% true. But notice how when she says no, she immediately elaborates and says, I had my own spot. So maybe after her lease was up, she was planning to move in with Chris.
Right. Or she was just happy to have two places and figure out what was going on with the girls. But I doubt that. Natalia, we welcome all sides of the story. I know there's full channels. I never will ever victim blame at all. So your comments are welcomed. However, I don't look at it in that way. I think Chris should have left her and got a divorce. Doesn't matter what she did to him. It doesn't matter if she punched him in the face. He should have called the cops and left, period.
So her answer about no, I wasn't going to move in could technically be true depending on the time frame.
I still have a lease there till July.
What about after July?
And even then, like, he never asked me to move in with him.
Okay.
And I never tried to move in with him.
He never asked me. That wasn't the question. The question was not, did he ask you to move in? That might have just been implied. And then the third, right, the fact that she's listing all these reasons why it's no is a good sign that it's sensitive to her. A good denial is direct and short. So for example, if I say, did you plan to move in? No. I didn't plan to move in. Done. No, I wasn't going to move in. Done. But if I say, no, my lease goes till July, well, that might mean that you're telling me, no, you weren't planning to move in until July. So technically, you're not lying to me. It's my fault for misunderstanding what you said. I assumed you never planned to move in when you were being honest and you told me I was going to move in after July. After all, that's why I told you about my lease ending in July. So if anyone ever played this back to Nicole, let's say things didn't go down the way they did. Let's say Chris didn't kill his family, and a year from now, she and Chris were living together, and someone said, hey, didn't you say you never planned to move in with him? She can say, I never lied. I said, I had my own spot till July, so I moved in after July. Or he never asked me to move in. Well, he asked me, so I moved in. The third reason she gives is I never tried to move in. Well, of course not, right? He doesn't have the apartment yet, so that makes sense. Once he has the apartment, she can say, well, I tried to move in after he got the apartment. He said yes.
I told him, I really try to take everything with this whole situation very slow. The only part that I screwed up on was the fact that he wasn't completely separated from her when him and I decided to spend time with each other. That is where I screwed up. But other than that, everything else, it was always like, you build your life, I'm going to build my life. We will intertwine them, but I am not ready to do this. And he respected that. And I even said that, and I don't know, that might be in the text, but so that 2 words like, Chris, you need space. You're just getting out of a divorce. Personally, I think jumping into a new relationship is a little quick. It's I was in a relationship earlier this year, and I think this is also a little quick. And I'm like, so why don't we take our time? And I'm like, if you guys end up doing a week on, a week off with your kids, I'm like, you have your kids, be with your children. And the week that you don't, I'm like,
Right, so once again, this sounds like a complaint disguised as an offering to him and his kids, right? The week we were,
It's really not disguised though, because she's showing her emotion in this quite a bit. When she talks, she's not talking like I'm talking and saying, "Hey, this is what happened. I'm really broken up about it," and using that emotion for being broken up about what happened to the family. She's bringing her emotion into how she felt about the situation, and nobody even sees it except for us. What? How many years later? 2018. We're in 2024. Almost 6 years later. There's something wrong.
with your kids, I'm hands off. I won't be there. Well, she's his girlfriend, right? He wants to spend time with his girlfriend. This could very well be another ultimatum. If you're with the kids, count me out. You need to pick me or the kids. That could very well be how it went down. It could have been an ultimatum about the wife and an ultimatum about the kids.
I don't even want to see you every day. I'm like, I think we should spend like a few days of that together. I'm like, because I like my space and I think you need your space. I think you need your space to like develop your identity again and like get it back, because I think he's just been.
So notice how she's recounting what she told him, and it sounds like she's lecturing him. You need space. You need to get your identity back. It sounds almost like she's lecturing him for trying to have his cake and eat it too, right? Why can't I be with you on the weekends and we keep this going while I'm still with my wife and my kids? No, you need space. You need to figure out who you are. You need to divorce your wife. You need to sell your house. You need to get as low visitation with your children as possible. You need to do all these things before you can spend time with me. So notice how she says she's the one who set the boundaries about when he could call her. He could only call her after the kids were in bed. She set that boundary, not him. She set the boundary about spending time with him. If you're with your kids, you can't spend time with me. One way to interpret it is, well, she really cares about his relationship with his kids. She doesn't want it to be awkward. So if he's with his kids, of course she'll stay behind the scenes. She won't show up there uninvited. Or we can interpret it the way with the context added, that she did not approve of him spending time with his kids because she set that boundary. If you're with the kids, I won't be there. Count me out. And in fact, that's why I won't move in. I will stay at my own place until you sort out what's going to happen with those kids of yours.
Been like so wrapped up in this whole thing that he's got in his own life and his life that he doesn't remember probably what it's like to like be single or have time where it's like just him.
Sure.
And so I was just like, like embrace that. I think it's a beautiful thing. And
Lying. It's not a beautiful thing for her. She wanted him. I don't know why she wanted him so bad. I can't understand it. That man could barely form a sentence when he was in interrogation, and I just don't see what she wanted him for. I think it was only just the fun part of it. She had fun with him. He went to jail. That was the end of the story. Now all of a sudden it was his bad. Yeah, I wonder if there's a way to start a petition. There's so many channels that follow this case still and believe that NK has something to do with this. Why is she still free? Where is she?
I really try to like take it smart with all that. And it was just.
And so embrace that. Spend time alone. Does that sound like she was giving him what she wanted, or sound like she was punishing him? Yeah, well, you want to call your kids all day and spend time with your kids? You can sleep in bed alone. Tough for you. You can spend another night alone. All right, so we're coming up on an hour of recording, so I'll wrap it up here. If you want a part 3, please let's get this video to 50,000 views. That way I know you guys like it and want to watch more. Also, please watch the video in its entirety. YouTube really cares about view time. So the more you can watch the entire video, the more it helps get it spread in the algorithm.
Absolutely, and I've watched your entire videos many times. This is the day the bodies were retrieved, but she seems totally disconnected from the horror of it. She's very self-absorbed, and let's see, so I missed that, and overly concerned to be as understanding and supportive. This was the day the bodies were retrieved, or the day after. There was many interviews that she had, not interrogations. Hello, Joanne. So that is interesting that she was so disconnected. She cared more about herself, and that's not a crime. But I do think with the pings and many other things that there was a crime that she committed, and maybe one day Chris Watts will come out with it. Maybe it's the thing. She wanted him because she knew she could control him. Awesome. Thank you, Honey Bun, for becoming a new member. I appreciate you. As a matter of fact, I'm going to show a really quick clip from, let me pull this down because I don't have all the time. I have to pick up my daughter in a bit, but I want to share a clip of, because I want to introduce Watts, the Obsession, to my viewers as well. And let's show this quickly. I want to show you this interesting information that was not shared. Shared. That was funny. Okay, so if you look at this, it actually shows here, and it's some pretty bombshell evidence that Kelly puts out there. If you look at the major problems exposed for DA Rourke's investigation in 9/4/2018 while running through the evidence submission list, and we love lists here, right? The submission list lab technician, Patricia Lopez, several items were listed that the CBI lab ultimately did not wish to take possession of at the time. Again, if we get a new investigator and fresh eyes, folks, that would be great. These items are crossed out of evidence submission form, which has been added to the case file. They refuse the items, or the following items. Why'd they do this? Can you see this? And people said that earlier. They said that earlier that there was no fingerprints, no DNA, no swabs, nothing from Chris Watts. They just took his word that he did it, and I'm sure he did do it. But they took his word that he did it, and that was it. They got none of the stuff you see on the screen. And this is Deception Detective. Deception Detective, I collaborate. He asks for collaborations, and I give them to him. Okay, let me play this real quick because I want you to see and show you. They didn't get oral swabs from Celeste. No oral swabs, no control swabs from Celeste. Oral swabs for Bella. Left Plumber swabs, whatever that means. Plamer from Bella, right? From Bella. Control swabs for Bella, right? Palmer. That's why it was Plamer. It was just a typo. No Palmer swabs from Shanann. No right or left. Control swab from Shanann. Driver's side seat cover from the work truck. Nothing. And they know he used the work truck to take the bodies where they did. Trace lift from the center console and trace lift from the back seat. The items were not taken to the CBI or transported back to Frederick Police Department and checked into evidence. Nothing further. Let me play a quick clip so I can introduce you to Watts the Obsession if you don't already subscribe to her.
iLab ultimately did not wish to take possession of at that time. Those items are crossed out on the evidence submission form, which has been added to the case file. The refused items are as follows. I'm going to read the last three items. Driver's side seat cover from work truck. Trace lift from center console of Chris Watts' work truck, and trace lift from backseat driver side of Chris Watts' work truck. The items that were not taken by CBI are transported back to the Frederick Police Department and checked into evidence. Nothing further. So, my friend,
I want you to see how deep Watts the Obsession. As you can tell by the name, she gets into this. I'm going to play another little clip so you can hear her more, and then I'll hop on to what I want to show you about the oil site video.
Friends, what that means is,
All right, so let's listen to it.
But CBI Colorado Bureau of Investigation chose to not send that evidence to their labs to analyze the evidence to determine what DNA could be found, what hair could be found, what other evidence, trace evidence could be found that would decisively identify what, if any, occupants were in Chris Watts' work truck, and they could also determine if those occupants were alive or deceased. It should be noted that on September 3rd, 2018, Dave Baumhofer wrote a letter to the CBI Bureau of Investigations Data and Evidence Analysis team asking for several items to be analyzed among the evidence that had been collected in the investigation. All the
See how they missed a bunch of things? On top of the interrogation that we see, they missed all of this stuff. It's just so many things that they didn't take and they didn't care about. They just took his word for it and moved on. We could have seen if her hair was in the truck. She wasn't supposed to have ridden in that truck. Didn't they say that she wasn't? Didn't she say she was never in the truck?
items from Chris Watts' work truck were refused for analysis the very next day on September 4th, 2018. When I realized the dates that this happened, it absolutely blew my mind, since September 3rd and September 4th are just about 3 weeks after the tragedy occurred, and Chris Watts did not plea until November. So what were they doing, refusing any kind of evidence related to this horrible, tragic crime, especially having to do with Chris Watts' work truck? What are they hiding?
Now, I agree. No one forced this man to do that, and he did, and he confessed. But there could be other evidence of other things and other people, and they shouldn't have let that go. That's why we're still here.
It's funny how at certain benchmark times after this horrible crime was committed, certain things went missing. For example, from Shanann Watts' Facebook page, certain things were no longer able to be located a short time after this tragedy, and then additional things as time went on. Things are not able to be located through even the most thorough of web searches when you try to find information out in a general information search on the internet. It's really strange. It seems that some things, including Chris Watts' mistress herself, went completely and fully missing, poof, vanished from the face of the earth. These are some of the posts from Shanann Watts to her Facebook page that were made on August 12, 2018 that you cannot find now. They went missing very shortly after this tragedy happened. Ready to get home to Chris and the girls.
Can one of the mods link her channel in here really quickly? Please, can you just throw up a link in the chat for Watts the Obsession for Kelly? Thank you.
Wrote around 3 p.m. on August 12th, the day before the murders, while she was in Arizona on her Thrive trip. And then at 5:20 p.m., she wrote, same day, August 12th, felt the baby move twice this weekend. I wonder why these posts were scrubbed from the internet shortly after this tragedy happened. They've been removed from the history books. I'm sure whoever removed them, and for the reason they were removed, they certainly hoped that nobody was going to continue to look into these issues, to try to find the things that were hidden by, well, who hid them anyway?
Honey Bun, what time will she be on? I have to pick my daughter up in a bit if she's going to have a panel guest. I was on her show the other day for like 3 hours. It was insane. She does her due diligence on this case. Another minute or so, and then I'll play my last clip.
When we do the research, the comparisons over time, we can see what items went missing, when, and not always where, but we can start to put all those pieces back together. I personally believe it's relatively clear why specific things went missing.
Okay, this is what I wanted to show you. I wanted to show you the timeline. This is huge about when they came back, when the family came back from North Carolina, and the 2 days in between when Shanann was gone, and then the whole family was wiped out, and then also talking about deleted Facebook posts that Shanann put up. It's just weird how it was deleted from history and why. So if they do go back and open this case, they're not going to have a lot of evidence. Remember, it wasn't like now. Someone said about Stephen Stearns, they didn't have the cloud. They had a cloud, but not like now. Everything's backed up on a cloud nowadays. Not back then in 2018. I know that was only 5-6 years ago, but the cloud, everything automatically goes to. It didn't do that then.
Certain times since the morning of August 13th, 2018. I'll tell you one thing, things start to look very interesting when you closely examine what exists, what has been hidden, and what has been altered, what has been destroyed. You may or may not know that on page 283 of the redacted discovery, there is an evidence collection log that records the collection of the interview of Nichol Kessinger from, remember, this horrible tragedy that took the lives of Shanann, Bella, Celeste, and unborn baby Nico happened on Monday, August 13th. So this is 2 days after. Nichol Kessinger had just given her first interview to the FBI on that.
So this gives you a lot of the backstory. I won't play the whole thing. I'm going to play some of it, but Davey, even though it is, a lot of things are not backed up. There's a lot of things that are. What happened with Stearns due to how hard drive storage works, I agree. But like I use Google Drive and so much of it's backed up. And if they don't back it up, they still give me time. They say, you're running out of space. I'll give you 30 days. Then you can pay $1.99 a month. So they do have things that they do keep a lot more than they did 5 years ago. And they gave you less space back then and it was more money. Now they give you more space for less money. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Day on the 15th in a park near her house with her doggy and her daddy both present. On this document, it states under the details, recorded interview of Nichol Kessinger, parentheses, and in all capital letters, protect identity, and parentheses, on August 15th, 2018. We're going to talk more about that. So listen, I believe that Chris Watts is completely guilty and he deserves to be in prison for the rest of his life, the rotten bastard, taking the lives of these beautiful people, his family members. There aren't even words and nobody can comprehend what happened. What I have come to believe more and more as time passes is that his mistress, Nichol Kessinger, is somehow involved in this tragedy. And we already know, Kessinger, that she committed crimes in the investigation of this case straight away. She admits it herself.
So I removed it.
So you already said, but you removed text messages.
I deleted all of his stuff.
Yet investigators played soft.
That's what we didn't hear in this portion of the video, that she deleted all of the stuff. So that's interesting. We saw it in another video. I want to show you the oil wells where she was built. It sounds like somebody walked in right now, and I think they did. All right, so let me play this for a second, and then I'll
Softball with her, underhand pitches, every single question they asked for the entire duration of the interviews, for the entire duration of the 5 interviews she underwent with the FBI and Colorado's CBI. What exists in discovery, combined with what we learned about Kessinger's actions and behaviors in the days following the tragedy and what she was trying to hide while she was being interviewed by law enforcement, when we compare what is known to be true and the stories that she clearly made up when she was being interviewed, shows us that she is likely somehow involved in this horrible, horrible tragedy. And what does not appear in discovery may indicate her guilt even more so than what is in that discovery document within the 1,960 pages. So here's what's real funny about the discovery. There are a lot of important events missing from the date August 12th, 2018. That is the day before Shanae Bella's.
All right, now I don't know how you can wipe out your kids. That was just my son that came on camera and gave me a kiss, folks. Let me show you this last clip, and then I'm going to get off and hang out with him, pick up my daughter. But I do think this is important. If you just saw the guy that came on screen, that was my son, 24 years old. He'll be 25 in October. I don't know how you can get rid of your kids like that. Just dispose of them. And this is what I'm going to show you right now. I'm going to show you of where he disposed of his kids and his wife like nothing. I don't know if it has sound, but if not, I'm sure I can talk my way through it. Take a look at that. Now, many of you that have watched this and you know about the case understand. She had so many shoes. Yeah, now we're talking about that. Nikki, he has to be a sociopath who objectifies people. Yeah, look at where he dumped his children. 8-inch hatches that he put his family, his daughters in. He pushed them through where their shoulders were. He had to push them through to get into that 8-inch hatch. Isn't that crazy? All right. Storage. Yeah, baby, we'll have to talk about that sometime. Aw. Oh, yeah, I have a 9-year-old and a 24-year-old. Isn't that crazy? Yeah, you see, look at the sheet. So there's the bed sheet. And let me make it a little bigger so you can see it better. Just wanted you guys to see. And I don't think that they have. Yeah, there's no sound on this. So I wanted you to see what they have going on here. I think a lot of you probably know exactly what happened here, but it was also theorized that he was going to burn the place down. Does anybody know about that? Yes, show love for him. Okay, there's the bed sheet. This is the real site. He brought gas cans with him. I don't know why he didn't burn it down. And yes, he had to dislocate the shoulders of his daughter to get them in the 8-inch hatch. So I don't understand how anybody could do that or what he was thinking. There's the bed sheet, folks. I always like to show some real evidence on my shows. Thank you. Love you back. Look at that. And they're showing the oil hatches. The first responder had to, look at that. That's a shallow grave, folks. First responder had actually retired or quit because of what they saw. Look at, he barely even dug a hole, and now they're pulling the babies out. We're not going to see anything terrible. Thank you, sweet Caroline. I appreciate you so much. Can you imagine those people that had to see those poor little girls? Yeah, of course they would, Ben. That sucks, what he did to them and how he did that. I don't know how anybody could do that. Yeah, first responders. All right, that's what I wanted to show you. I wanted to show you the real life, what was going on, and what happens. I always like to talk, joke. We can joke about things, get lighthearted, so we're not over here crying and all that fun stuff. But we're still talking about true crime and what the possibilities are. Thank you, Honey Bun. Yes, we call NKS Swanky Empanada the dirty brown. Oh my God, you're killing me. Don't do this. I'll make me laugh like that. Thank you, Darlene, for the super sticker. Any and all donations are appreciated. Again, I have over 9,000 subscribers. If everybody gave $1, that would help me out. And only because of the situation with my house, I posted it in the community. You can take a look. It's not a good situation. I'll talk more about that tomorrow with you all. I hope you guys come tomorrow to our stream for members only. We're gonna have a lot of gossip and dirt, and it's gonna be real life stuff. It's not just gossip. I'm actually gonna tell you more about myself, my life, and we're gonna talk about Gypsy Rose. That's a good one. Love you too. Yeah, there's so many things. All right, guys. I love you all. I'm going to go hang out with my son and pick up my daughter and then head back to the hotel. That reminds me of the song. All right. I'm out. Love you all.
Guilty of crime.
I want to thank you for watching. If you enjoyed my content, please share this video, like, and subscribe. You can also follow me over at Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X, or Gmail. If you'd like to donate to my channel, you can use Cash App or Venmo or PayPal. Thank you very much in advance. Guilty of crime.
Are you guilty of crime?